Hi, today we're going to be talking about performance, how to make our web pages load faster is the basic idea. Alright, so why do we want things to load faster? Anybody? Right, slow is bad. Yeah, I'm sure that we all knew that and we all want things to run faster, but the question is, what can we do to make things run faster? Before we can talk about that, we need to talk about reasons that it's slow and what we can do about those reasons. So in a study they found out that like 80 to 90% of the speed problems are on the client side. So that's the place that we want to start. An easy answer to speeding things up would be just getting more bandwidth. Why don't we do that? Well, there's a lot of things that are involved with sending web pages back and forth, including looking up the domain name, doing the load and the unload, and just a number of other things that slow things down. So it turns out that by increasing the bandwidth, it speeds it up a little bit, but there comes a point where it kind of levels off, and it doesn't matter how much speed you have, there's still going to be this lag in there of loading things. See this more clearly, let's look at this graphic that shows us the things that happen when you do a page load. So first of all, there's a possible redirection that just takes you to another web page instead of the one you originally wanted to go to. Then it caches the app, it does a domain name service lookup, then it puts together the request into a TCP packet and sends that out, sends the request out. Then we get the response. Then when the response comes in, we do some processing, start loading the DOM and a bunch of other things, and then when that is done, when the DOM is complete, then you do the load event. So all of that has to take place, and that's just on top of the actual transfer of the data. Now, so it happens that there's some tools that'll help us to measure these things on real websites. They're called waterfall graphs, and there's one at webpagetest.org that is free and easy to use. So this is something I'm going to show you. You can just go to that web page, put in whatever site it is that you want to test, and it will give you this waterfall graph, which lists all of the, I put it in for FHUNEum site, and for all the different objects in there, all the different files that it needs to load and everything, it graphically shows you when it starts and when it finishes. The little colors mean things like when it did a DNS lookup, or time to get the first byte, and then when it's finally downloaded. And so, you know, the original page, this is where it got its first byte, and then it took all this time in here, all that green time, to load down the rest of it. And so at the end, you get a nice picture of what it took to load the page, and you can also see if there's some things that are taking longer than others, and it may give you something to work on. So pay attention to the waterfall graph, because it's something that I want you to make use of on your project. And something else I want you to make use of are these performance methods that you use to actually speed things up. So there's 14 sort of suggestions here for how you can speed things up, and I will talk about them a little bit one by one, but there's some that are more important for you than others. You'll notice at the bottom of the page there's a website here that you can go to, and I would like you to make note of that, because this will help you in your project to decide which of these things that you want to do and how you go about doing them. So the first thing is reducing the HTTP request. This just means that everything that you put in there, when you include a CSS file or a JavaScript file or anything like that, images, all of those things are HTTP requests. So what you can do is you can take some of the images and mash them together to make one image. That cuts down on the number of requests. Instead of having 4 different JavaScript files, put them all into one. Now it may help you to organize things, to put them into different ones. But when you actually go to deploy your website, it might be better to put them all in one for the performance of the website. The next thing is using a CDN, which is a content delivery network. It's just a lot of servers that are geographically distributed, so that if you're serving something up from here in Graz and somebody wants to download it from the United States, that is a long distance, and so you're going to have a much longer lead time for sending the bytes. And if you are big enough that you can have your own CDN, that's great. Otherwise, you can make use of their services that will provide you with those sorts of things. This is important for you guys. This is not important for you guys because you are going to just be serving them up here in Austria, so it's not going to matter. The next one is adding an expires header. So this is just a header that tells the browser when to take something out of cache. So anything that's static expires never by putting in a very long lead time there, and that just ensures that it'll stay in the user's browser's cache and load up more quickly the next time. For other things that are not static, you might want to put an appropriate header in there that tells it when to expire, so that the browser can manage that better. Gzipping components, the next thing. This just is a message that you send to the, it's like a header that you put in there that tells the server that it's okay to encode these things in some sort of compression software. Usually gzip is the one that's used, and then the browser will then in turn unzip those things. So it just makes the transfer go that much faster. The next two things kind of go hand in hand. First of all, putting the style sheets up at the top in the head section, and then putting the scripts down at the bottom. I know that I've said before to put the scripts up at the top, and I still think you can do that. I think you get marginal benefit from putting the scripts at the bottom. And there's also a problem if anybody ever has a document.write, that has to go in the script at the top. So to be on the safe side, you might want to put them in the top, but you will get maybe slightly improved performance if you put them in. Next, you should avoid CSS expressions. These are ways of making your styles apply dynamically to your website, and supposedly they're a little bit dangerous, and you take a hit on performance, so it's just best to stay away. The next thing is making JavaScript and CSS external, putting them in external files. This kind of flies in the face, or is different from reducing the HTTP requests. Here we're saying don't have so many files out there, and here we're saying, well, yeah, but have at least one file for JS, another one for CSS. And the reason for that is because the browser can cache these things, and so for multiple requests or for requests for different web pages from the same site, it can make use of these things that have already been downloaded to the browser. Next, reduce the DNS lookups. This just means if you've got a lot of links to different sites, just try to minimize that if you can. So anytime you're bringing up the JavaScript and CSS and those sorts of things that are on your own site, that's okay, because that won't increase the DNS. It doesn't have to look up another domain name for that. Next is minifying the JavaScript. This just means taking out any extraneous space. So putting in returns and spaces and things like that that help the programmer make sense out of this is nice. That's what we want. But in production mode, what we really like is just the minimal amount of code that needs to be in there. And there are programs out there that'll help you to minify. The last four things are things that you should be aware of, but you don't need to use for your project. Avoiding redirects is always a good idea. This is for domain names that are not used anymore and you want to direct people to a new site. Removing duplicate scripts when you're code base gets so big that you're actually, have copies of the same functions in different parts of the code base, it's time to clean those things up. And the next one, configuring eTags, is just a way of making sure that your cache copy is the same as the one on the server. Just you don't need to worry about that. And then the last one is you can set in the header to make the AJAX cacheable, and that's probably a good idea, but in the case of our project, it's not all that. Okay, so make sure you make note of this website, and these methods that are important for you are the first one, reducing HTTP requests. The third one, the first one, the fourth one, the gzip components, the fifth one here, putting the style sheet at the top. I'm not that worried about you putting the scripts at the bottom. Either one is fine, but I don't think that's going to matter much. And then making these JS and CSS externals, and maybe minimizing the JS. We'll see. You can try that if you want. All right, so that's it for today, and I will be getting the information about the project to you shortly. Have a good week.